A record label handed a band $1 million. Straight cash, homie. Late 80s money. And they said, start over. The band said, no. The album was Kick. 6 times platinum, 4 monster singles, and a permanent place in the soundtrack of the late 80s playlist. My name is Freddy Cruz. This is your mic. And this is not a story about playing it safe for your audience. This is a story about what happens when you believe in your work more than the people holding the checkbook. Let's rewind. I was a suburban Houston kid the first time INXS hit me. I don't remember what the commercial was selling. I just remember Michael Hutchins' voice cutting through whatever I was doing. New Sensation. I loved that song. I love the whole album, Kick. It really is a classic. Sports promos, movie trailers. New Sensation was the kind of song that makes the entire room feel taller for 3.5 minutes. And then, oh man, Never Tear Us Apart. Remember that one? It showed up with that saxophone line and my entire nervous system was like, whoa. Michael Hutchins never knew I existed, but he rewired me. Sadly, he died at 37. November 22nd, 1997. We'll never know what the next 37 years of songs would have sounded like, but here's the part that really, really messes with me. Kick almost didn't happen the way we know it. They finished the record, they were sure of it. Their manager, Chris Murphy, he flew to New York, he sat down with Atlantic Records, he played the whole thing front to back, the label listened, they nodded, they took it all in, and then what did those guys do? They rejected it. Too funky for rock. Too rock for pop. They didn't know where to put it. So they did what execs do. They offered money to sand the edges off. $1 million do-over. Here's a check. Make something more marketable. INXS? They said no. No disrespect, no tantrum, just we know what this is and we're not rebuilding it from scratch because you're nervous. And that's the part that as a 50-year-old really lodged in my brain and would not leave. How do you say no to $1 million? Not out of ego, not out of delusion, but out of a very specific, very rare kind of knowing. Not, I hope. Not, I have a good feeling. I know. Now, a quick disclaimer before this turns into something it isn't. I'm not a motivational speaker. There's no fog machine in here. It's Saturday afternoon at the time of this recording. I am alone in my Office Evolution studio. I am not your guru. I'm just a clumsy business builder who grew up in the corporate world, learned how to play nice in meetings, and then decided late in the game, 46 to be exact, that he'd rather be in the garage stacking bricks wrong than in the boardroom stacking decks right. I spent 25 plus years inside institutional media. 2 times my previous employer won Marconi Awards. 17,000 plus hours on the radio, middays, afternoons, overnight shifts when the only people listening were insomniacs and bartenders on their way home from work. I hosted a Sunday morning public affairs show I loved way more than the people down the hallway did. I did the whole company man thing. And I learned exactly how fast your voice can disappear when somebody in a glass office decides the format needs to change. Speke Podcasting, the company I run now, was never supposed to exist. On paper, it still doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. It's like a long, never-ending dream. I walked away from the machine and started a podcast shop in a city full of bigger agencies with bigger teams, nicer conferences, and even bigger and nicer budgets. And here's the part nobody puts on their website. There are basically no metrics. None. This is not the part of the story where I tell you I went out on my own and immediately crushed it. This is the 0 view, 2 download chapter. The one where you post a clip you bled over and the only engagement is a comment from a spam account promising to grow your podcast to 10K a month, bro. I'm ignoring the numbers not because I'm above them, but because there aren't any. There's no satisfying graph trending up and to the right. There's just me a mic, some clients I love working with, and a blank board that doesn't care how accomplished my resume used to be. People talk about not chasing metrics after they've gone viral. I'm not chasing metrics because, well, there's not really anything to chase yet. At least not in the life of this podcast. It's a small, dedicated audience. So I had to decide what I'm actually doing here. And this is the sentence that keeps coming back to me. I'm not serving a market. I'm building a body of work. One that exists even if there were no metrics. Conveniently, they're kind of sort of, but not really metrics. So this is like the perfect lab because I love talking about this kind of stuff. That's my $1 million offer on the table, not from a label, but from that voice in my head that sounds like every cautious executive I've ever worked for. Hey, Freddy, maybe wait. The part of me that picked up a sax because a stranger's voice on TV made the room tilt? He has zero interest in market research. That kid doesn't know the word niche. He just knows, I need to play that. That is who's running the show now. You see, INXS had Atlantic's charts, history, and expertise stacked in front of them, and they walked away with one asset. We know what this is. That's the only asset I have that actually matters right now in this part of my journey. I know why I'm doing this. I know what it feels like to rely on institutional media to hand you a mic. I know what it feels like to have 20 plus years and 2 Marconis behind you and still feel like a temp, 120% pay cut away from irrelevance. Speak podcasting in your mic? Well, they, my friend, are my quiet little act of revenge. Not against specific people, against the entire idea that you and me, that I have to wait for permission to talk. So I run my company like this. If I've got clients that release twice a week, and I do, shout out to the Rose, then at the very least, I should be releasing 2 episodes of Your Mic every week, no exceptions. If they are in their 12 download era and still showing up, I don't get to vanish because my ego doesn't like being at the bottom of the chart. If I'm going to be asking other people to treat podcasting as an infinite game, I too have to play an infinite game, even when it's not fun, because anything less is malpractice. Not business malpractice, soul malpractice. And I don't say that as a coach. I'm not a coach. I'm not a guru. I'm not a motivational speaker. I already went over this. I say it as a guy who knows exactly how tempting it is to cash the metaphorical $1 million check and start sanding off anything that might make somebody upstairs or down the hall nervous. Sometimes it doesn't feel heroic. It feels like work, especially when you look at the dashboard. Outline, record, stumble, edit, second guess everything I've done, upload reluctantly. Watch the stats, do very little, rinse, repeat. Some days, it's a burn to the ego. Some days I question whether anybody needs another middle-aged dude with a mic and strong opinions about podcasting. But underneath the noise is that same stubborn, slightly unhinged conviction. I would be making this even if nobody showed up. Because for 26 years, I lived in a world where the answer to, can I say this, depended on ad buyers and ratings books and format clocks. This right here is the first time in my adult life where the only person who can pull the plug on my voice is me. And to me, that is worth so much. The answer is no. I'm not serving a market. I mean, you could say I am. I'd tell you no, I'm not. I am building a library of work. So far, well over 100 episodes that would exist even if there were no analytics dashboards, no charts, no viral clips, no bot farms offering me fake listeners. I am making the record I can live with, not the one that tests well in a conference room or that you see LinkedIn bros post about. And if you're somewhere in your own zero view, 2 download era, quietly certain that what you're making is real enough, though the world isn't clapping yet, then maybe this episode was for you. Or maybe, like me, you just needed to say it out loud so you couldn't weasel out later. Hey, look, if you're a clumsy business builder like me or an executive with a nonprofit or what have you, and you're trying to make something that would still be worth doing with no metrics and no applause, I see you. Even if the charts don't yet. And if you want to chat podcasting, please reach out. Freddy at spekepodcasting.com. That's Freddy with a Y at SPEKE podcasting.com. The gates are not closed anymore. You don't need $1 million permission slip. All you need is your mic. So use it already.